Um, unless you're living under a rock, as they say, or you just choose not to pay attention to what's going on in the world today, you know that there was a trial of Derek Chauvin, and there was a verdict that was laid down, and he was found guilty on all three accounts: 2 counts of murder, 1 count of manslaughter, and the details of the case. I'm not going to get into all the details of how he was convicted, why he was convicted. All those things are out there. I'm not going to make the attempt to get into that. Definitely prayers to the family. Thank you for coming through, Melanie. What I'm making an attempt to talk about is why this is important, especially being a black man, especially living in America, why this is a big deal. And I'll say this right now, I make no attempt to speak on behalf of the whole black community. I understand if some people don't want to hear this. I understand if some folks want to unsubscribe or tune it off. That's your business, and I respect your decision when it comes to that, particular thing. But from my perspective, and my perspective only, in my opinion, why the Derek Chauvin verdict matters as it pertains to the death of George Floyd is all the things that people talked about: accountability, acknowledgement, stuff like that you know about. I mean, and I won't take that away from anybody, and I won't say that's not a big deal. It definitely is a big deal to have accountability, to have an acknowledgement. But what I think one of the main reasons why this matters, regardless of what side you stand on when it comes to the Derek Chauvin verdict and the trial of the killing, the death of George Floyd, all the circumstances and everything that's around it, is that it shows a generation of people, a generation of youth coming up, folks that have been fighting for this for years, for whatever brand of justice or whatever decisions to be rendered. It lets them know that it's possible to reach a certain verdict, whether you agree with it, whether you disagree with it. It lets you know that it's possible to seek whatever justice that you have or whatever justice that you're looking to find within the system. And some people don't want to hear that because there are people definitely who stand on both sides. Some folks that are pro cop, some folks that are pro George Floyd and the situation like that. And what I say to people is it's a rough time. It's a crazy time because you know the systemic racism still exists. It's not going away. It's not disappearing anytime soon. It's not an easy situation to tackle. One verdict, one case is not going to change that. But you do celebrate the fact that there's accountability, there's acknowledgement for this moment. But even as we speak now, what was it? I was reading in the New York Times that 20 minutes before or minutes before the verdict, in Ohio, a teenager was shot. A teenage girl was shot. And it was unnamed, but that's an issue right there. Then there's Dante Wright. A couple of days ago that happened. So Dante Wright is shot as they're protesting and having a trial of George Floyd. So there's still so much work to be done. Yes, Melanie. And that's one of the things about it. There's still so much work to be done. And that's a sentiment that's definitely being echoed. And I don't want anybody to lose sight of that. But it matters that this happened because it shows people that change is possible. It shows people that if you keep fighting, if you don't give up, if you keep pressing on, you can, gain justice and you can get some victories. Not all victories, but you can actually push forward and you can actually make some things happen. And I know there are folks that are mad that are on the other side that don't see the point. They don't get it. And a lot of folks that don't get it and don't see the point, maybe they never had to deal with that. Maybe they never had to be stopped and frisked. They may have never had, their life under threat by somebody who abused their rights under the uniform. And I'm not saying all cops are bad. That's not where I'm going with this. I know some good people that are cops. I've worked with some people that are cops. So that's not the case. Unfortunately, you have people under the uniform, as is the case with the death of George Floyd, that abused the badge. that make it look bad, especially in Minnesota, which has a history of this. I've talked to other uniformed police officers who said they need to chill out over there in Minnesota. They're not doing any good deeds for the rest of the cops out there. And also, I'll say this too, as a backlash, I hope that we don't see a spike in crime. I hope violent crimes don't go up because of this, because cops are afraid to actually do their jobs or interact with the public. There's going to be that backlash. There's going to be consequences and repercussions. There's going to be things that happen. But this is a flashpoint, I think, at this time in this moment. And I really hope folks take this and actually use this as a chance of healing, as a chance to come together, as a chance to speak to all parties involved, all sides, to how we deal with each other as a community, how the community deals with the cops, and how the cops deal with the community, and vice versa, and not just make this a political hot button issue. This shouldn't be just a flash in the wind, flash in the pan. Like I said, it's a situation where we can learn from it, we can grow from it, because there's so many cases and there's so many things that are happening right now that won't be addressed, that won't be dealt with. There are people that are going through situations and they won't seek justice, and they won't have a way out. But this case, this verdict, regardless of which side you stand on it, regardless of how you feel about it, regardless of whether there be appeals or anything like that, it shows that you can find movement, you can find traction, you can actually receive or get a certain result. Movement and justice can happen. And sometimes people feel hopeless. They feel disenfranchised. This is something for the disenfranchised. And some people may argue that if they didn't do this, they were going to riot, they were going to burn the city down, we're going to have civil war, race war, whatever the case may be. And you can argue that. You can go into that. But what I say is, what if it does actually bring some positive change? What if it actually does let the youth know, hey, maybe the justice system can work for you? Maybe there is accountability that can happen for you. Maybe it's not a situation where everything is all hopeless. And I think that's one of the reasons why, one of the main reasons why this verdict matters, because it shows certain people in society who are low income, who are poor, who are brown, who are black, that if you fight, if you push, then maybe you too can actually get justice. They say it's supposed to be liberty and justice for all in America. We all created equal. That's a lot to be desired with that. But moments like this give you hope. And this verdict today, regardless of how a lot of people may feel, regardless of what side you stand on, it gave a lot of people of color, a lot of people who come from situations and areas where they face particular issues with the police. It gave them some hope. Now, will there be backlash? Will there be problems? Yes. Will there be people that say, they rushed to judgment too quick? The jurors were worried about their life. The politicians got involved, and special interest groups. Of course, it's going to be that. Of course, there's going to be cops that say, you know what, how could you prove murder? There's going to be an appeal process, and you risk a mistrial because of things that Biden said and Maxine Waters, all the politicians and things getting involved. And you can argue a lot of different points, but this was important because a lot of people needed to see that they could be heard. A lot of people needed to know that their lives mattered, not to get, too deep into that, but people needed to know that, folks are not just going to keep seeing the same thing and over, because what a lot of people don't realize is that there were a lot of people today who were expecting things to go the other way. It wouldn't have been a surprise if it was a not guilty plea. It wouldn't have been a surprise if all hell broke loose and the world is on fire. Nobody would be surprised by that. But again, why do we need that? Why can't you seek justice? Why can't it be a situation where folks actually come together and actually begin to do some healing and actually have some accountability and have some acknowledgement that the system is broken, that there's systemic racism, that there are issues that need to be addressed, which can't be addressed just by this one case, because this one case, this one verdict is not going to change everything. Because like I said, again, 20 minutes before this, a teenager was shot in Columbus, Ohio before the verdict came. A teenage girl, unnamed teenage girl. And before that, Dante Wright. And then before that, who knows how many unnamed, unarmed individuals may have had interactions or situations based upon the color of their skin or where they come from, their background, their education. Who knows? Like I said, so there's so many unnameless people. There's so many folks out there that we may never know. So many names that may never we may never find. We celebrate or we memorialize or we fight for the ones that we know. You know, the Walter Wrights, the Sandra Blands, the Freddie Grays, the Mike Browns of the world. The Eric Garners. We push for those, but those are the ones we know. What about the ones we don't know? And the crazy part about it is that this case, this verdict, it gives people closure for folks that have been suffering and struggling for that. I mean, and don't get me wrong, I'm not going to sit there and say every circumstance is the same. I'm not going to say every cop out there is a villain, is a crook, is a killer. That's not the case. And I'm not going to say every person caught up and shot by the police is a saint. Is a saintly figure, and there's not issues with that. But sometimes we forget to look at each other as human beings. And it's crazy. One of the few times I actually agree with the Reverend Al Sharpton is when he came out and said that we don't celebrate any man going to jail as it pertains to Derek Chauvin. But at the same time, you need that accountability. I mean, we would rather that George Floyd be alive, as the Reverend Al Sharpton was saying. We'd rather him be alive. You didn't want Derek Chauvin to go to jail. You wish no man to go to jail, and you wish no man to be dead. So you have one man going to jail. You have another man dead. You have family mourning, and all these complicated things that still need to be done. Like Melanie was saying, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. This is not something that's over. This is not something that's going to end. Just because we got this verdict, this is not a time to celebrate. This is not a time to be jubilant. Also, it's not a time to, burn and riot and protest or anything like that. It doesn't solve this one thing. But the main reason I think this is important is because it lets people know that it's possible. It's possible to achieve a certain result. You're not going to win every victory. You're not going to get every change that you want to happen, but you can get some. You can push for certain things. You can pick your battles. You can pick your fights, and you can actually push for change. There's a lot of people out there who sacrifice, who protest. There's a lot of people who were out there, doing things that were positive, within the confines of the law. And those things are relevant. Those things are important, especially for somebody like me, somebody of color, somebody who's been stopped and frisked before, somebody who has been questioned by the police, somebody who has been arrested unfairly. So I know how serious these things could get. Hopefully this is not boring you. If it is, I understand. But the reason this is relevant and even important for me to talk about, because this is more than just a trending topic. This is more than just a YouTube video. These things are my life. The things I'm talking about to you right here, I could have been somebody like George Floyd. My brother could have been. Or you may have a family member or a friend or somebody that a black friend or brown or somebody from a minority, community who could have easily been George Floyd, who could have easily been Eric Garner, Freddie Gray, Sandra Bland, and the list goes on and on. Breonna Taylor could have easily been one of those people, could have easily been in one of those situations. We take it for granted because a lot of times it's not in our community. It doesn't matter to us, especially I'm talking for the folks that don't have to deal with these things. And I do acknowledge the folks that are of a different race or Caucasian or whatever that do have to deal with it, because it's not just black people. It's, white folks as well. All people go through, different issues with the police, especially if you come from a particular area. So that's something that I do want to highlight. And, we all have our issues. So I think there needs to be more of an open dialogue, a community outreach, understanding that comes without policing. Folks need to live in the neighborhoods that they're policing, not just coming in from another state, another province, another town, somewhere that's not associated with the places that you're policing. You need to have more community policing, more community outreach. You need to actually care and know and get to see people, get back to understanding the PALs, the after school programs, the community outreach programs, really being invested in the community. The people need to know that the folks policing the communities actually care about who's in these communities. And if we don't do that, then you have more of these situations where stuff like this happen. This is important, because a lot of good people out there have died. A lot of people have got caught up and jammed up in situations that could have been totally avoided. Had there been an understanding, had there been an open line, a dialogue, had there been a relationship. I remember out in Baltimore a couple of years back, there was a football game that was organized between the police department and the community because they said they wanted to have a positive interaction with each other outside of just policing, outside of just being arrested and being treated like criminals and stuff like that. So sometimes you need to have these events, you need to have these I guess reasons to get together and not just be a situation where I'm the law enforcement and you're the perp, so the perpetrator of a crime. We need to see each other as human beings, and sometimes that's lost in translation. And for those folks out there that are cops that feel some type of way about this verdict or maybe against it, understand that it's an open dialogue. It's a chance to actually get some understanding, to actually begin to grow and try to change and try to look at the justice system a lot differently than what we look at it as, because it's broken. There's systemic racism. People of color are definitely treated differently from people who are not. Folks from certain areas are definitely treated differently from those who are not. These are things that are important. Like I said, this is not just a trending topic for me. This is not just a YouTube video. Once this YouTube video goes off, I still have to deal with the police. I'm still a black man in America. I still have to watch what I say and what I do out in those streets, because I could be the next. Hopefully I'm not. Hopefully other people in my family are not. But these are things that you still worry about. Just because this trial had a guilty verdict, I'm talking about the Derek Chauvin, doesn't mean that it's over. Yeah, this is so important. Yes, it is. Yes, it is, Melanie. And people don't realize that. It is important, how we interact and understand it, and beginning to see that, hey, look, our system needs change. How we treat folks, how we look at folks, how we police folks. It's important. Everybody's not a criminal. Everybody walking around with a hoodie, in the middle of the night is not out to rob you. I'm not up to something suspicious if I'm standing on a corner, drinking a juice or something, or if I have a pack of Skittles. Everybody's not looking to rob you or hurt you or rape you or do you harm. Now, are there criminals out there? Yes. They're criminals, white, black, brown, Puerto Rican, Haitian, whatever, of all types. But the thing is, like Martin Luther King used to say, you want to judge somebody not by the color of their skin, but the content of the character. And that's what we need to get back to. We need to get back to looking at people for the content of the character, not the color of their skin, not the background that they come from, not the neighborhood that they come from, the zip code or whatever the case may be, or the job that they have, because these are things that are important. We have so many prejudices built into society, so much systemic racism that causes us to get to these points, because the reality is there's a lot of us that don't want this to be what it was today. You don't want to be in a situation where you have to send a man to jail and there's another man dead. There's a lot of us out there who wish that George Floyd was still alive and this never happened, especially in the midst of a pandemic. This is not what we need. This is not what we desire. This is not what we wanted. This is not something that benefits us in any way. But unfortunately, we're here now, and this is what we're dealing with. And again, like I said, I reiterate, the reason this verdict matters is because it shows people who are disenfranchised. It shows people who are hopeless. It shows people who lost faith in the system that if you keep fighting, if you keep pushing, maybe there's a slither of hope. Maybe there's a possibility that you could get some type of justice, and it's not just, one not guilty verdict after another not guilty verdict, and another person slide and then another person slide, because there's a lot of people in the black community, rich, poor, gay, straight, famous, not famous, obscure, who did not believe that this was going to happen. There are a lot of people who actually expected it to go the other way. A lot of people who were ready to protest and riot and do some things, and you could make your arguments about why that happened, and maybe this was something that was rushed because they were afraid of what was going to happen, even with all the video evidence. But this is definitely a moment. It's a flashpoint in time, and hopefully we can learn from it. Hopefully some healing can come from it. Hopefully it's not something that just goes away and it's going with the wind, and you look and you say, well, wow, what happened? But I really do hope we get some healing from it. And it's going to take some time. It's definitely going to take some time. But that's my words on it. That's my perspective. Hopefully, this was helpful, the words that I gave you. Anybody that's watching this, shout out to the replay gang. Also, give your thoughts and your opinions about what I'm saying. How do you feel? What do you feel about this verdict? Do you feel that is something that's impactful to reforming of the justice system? Or do you not feel that it's impactful? What do you feel about it? I would like to know. Leave that in the comment section. Leave that, after this video is uploaded, because I know a lot of people may not want to look at this video. And if you don't want to comment, that's okay too. I appreciate that. Just you being yourself, being honest, if this is not something that you want to talk about. But I encourage people to keep the conversation going. I encourage people to look differently at folks of color, especially the ones that have to experience situations like this, because not all of us are criminals. Not all of us are out there looking to harm you or defraud you or do anything to you. Some of us just get a rough break, or some of us get judged, just based on the color of our skin or how we look or where we come from or how we talk. And with that being said, spread love is the Brooklyn way. Thank you for listening. Do.